Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another Glacial Geek Deep Thoughts, Thin Coats with me, Phil, the Glacial Geek. Today I'm going to be talking about just generally kind of what 8th edition has me kind of feeling and wanting to do. Just going into this, kind of processing a lot of the ideas, because I don't want to go too deep. I'll go into some of the stuff that I'm hearing coming out about 8th edition, but honestly, they're coming so fast and furious that by the time you see this, it's going to be on to the next big thing, and you're not really going to care too much about it. So that's kind of what we're going to be talking about today. I'm going to start building up some Metamorphs and Acolyte hybrids. I've kind of at this point just been using the ones that came with the Overkill box set, and they've been going cool. They look cool, but I want to move on to get some of the cool new stuff, like some of the rock grinders or the heavy drill or something like that. I don't know. Maybe you get some lashes in the claws. The claw! So that's kind of what I will be working on today. So yeah, talking about what 8th edition has me feeling. You know, there's a lot of people out there that are I mean, there's a lot of changes. There's a lot of changes that are going on with it, both in gameplay and it seems like in mechanics for weapons or just the way things work. And I think generally I'm just very excited for it. I think it's about time for something new. I've played a lot of 7th edition games, and those games have not, they've been a lot of fun. I've had a lot of fun with it, but I'm ready for something new. And I think I love the background and the lore of 40k, and I'm excited to see that being pushed forward, that being changed, going forward the way they are now with the Primaris Marines and the Ultra, what is it, the Ultra Crusade that they're talking about, or the foundings, the new founding that they're doing with the Primaris Marines. I think that's kind of cool. You know, the new rift that's going across the universe, I think, is really interesting. It'll probably lead to some interesting lore tidbits while they try to figure out how to traverse that rift without completely getting sucked into the warp. So it should be pretty interesting to see how it all just kind of pans out. So yeah, I'm very excited for that. And what it kind of has me feeling is I want to try new things, you know, because it's an opportunity now to have a fresh slate and try some new things. I'm also excited to try some old things. I know it sounds kind of contradictory, but I'm actually getting very excited to try out playing with my Terminators again. They're going to be very different, and I think that's going to be interesting to see how different they are and how different they play out. But it should be exciting. We've got a lot of different rules coming out, and just seeing how it's all coming together has me very excited. It looks like there's going to be ways to make to put together armies that will be very interesting to let me figure out this out. There's going to be some interesting ways to put together armies that use the keywords that they have, but it doesn't sound like they're going to be super restrictive in the keywords. Like, I think one of the keywords that you can put together a list from is Imperium. So I think that's going to be a lot of fun. I've already started to build ideas about like the last remnants of some forces left on a planet that's been under siege, cut off from reinforcements, and all you have is, you know, a few Space Marines that have managed to pull together whatever Imperial forces are on the planet. So maybe there happened to be an Inquisitorial kill team in there. Maybe there was some Astra Militarum there. Maybe there was. I'm really excited about possibly getting some of the Tempestus Scions. Those guys have always looked cool, and I've never really got into it because I've always had other armies to build. But if all I need to do is paint up one squad and I can put them together with a list, I mean, it makes sense. I could totally do that. I think it would be great to be able to do that. So, what do we got here? 3. Oh, man. Yeah, trying to figure out these ones. All right. But yeah, I think that it's going to be a lot of fun to be able to see how it all comes together, and I think it's really going to open up a lot of the just options that we can do with building lists. And I think that's what 8th edition really has started to do for me, is really open up my eyes to a lot of the other options that I just never really considered. You know what I mean? Because it would take a lot. You'd have to, even if you were just making like an allied detachment, it still required a fair amount of investment to make it work. You know, you would have to get at least the HQ and at least the troop choice, and they, you know, if you want them painted, you have to build them and paint them and figure out what the weapons are, and you'd have to get a whole nother codex to figure it out. Now, the way it's working out, I'm probably going to be picking up 3 of the indexes. So the one that's the Power Armor Index, the rest of the Imperium Index, and then the Xenos Index with these guys, with the Genestealer cult in them. So with all of that, now I've got the rules to be able to play any of those units that I want to, and I can put them together however I want to. So if I want to go out and just want to get a squad of Tempestus Scions to run along as, you know, some support for Marines, I can. And I just have to go, I can buy the one squad and paint it up and play them however I want to. Which is, to me, sounds like a lot of fun. And I think that's the big change, I think, and the big shift that I've felt with 8th edition coming out, is this desire to kind of to branch out and explore ways of diversifying my list and my armies and my builds, which I think is going to be interesting. I think it's going to be fun. You know, I know I'll always have a place in my heart and a place in my armies for the Dark Angels and now the Death Watch and the Genestealer cult. But I mean, now that I can put them all together and I'm going to have the rules for the Tyranids, I've got a bunch of Tyranid warriors and some Carnifexes that I got with the what was it, the Death Storm, or the Death Storm box set that came out with the Blood Angels and the Tyranids. So I've got a bunch of those that I can put together that would be kind of fun to just run in a list with some Genestealer cults. You know, kind of put it together that we've got the you know, maybe it's that the High Fleet has finally arrived on the planet, and now they're working together before the Tyranids inevitably betray them and devour them. So I think it'll be fun to be able to do that without having to worry about the allied detachment matrix, without having to worry about anything like that. I think it's going to really, really open up the options for putting together some fun and interesting lists. And that's kind of the direction that I'm heading here, is looking at what I have and then looking at kind of what interests me, you know, out there. I don't really have a super interest in some of the Xenos armies. Like Orcs, they're cool. Don't get me wrong. I think all of the armies are cool, but for me personally, I don't find a draw to doing the Orcs. I think that it's just not the way I like to build and paint and collect. Same thing with the Tau. I think they're cool. Spacesuits are really cool, but I'd prefer to just kind of, I don't know. I just don't like them. You know, I prefer the Terminator suits over their Crisis suits. I prefer Dreadnoughts over Riptides. I just think they look cooler. And that's just a personal aesthetic choice, you know what I mean? Obviously, game rules-wise, they're pretty cool. But, presumably in 8th edition as well. But, personally, I make my decisions based upon the aesthetic choices and also the lore choices, and then I make the list options that I can from there. I just kind of choose based upon what interests me first, and then I build the hardest, strongest list I can from there if I'm going to a tournament or if I'm just playing with friends, whatever's coolest. So, 8th edition has me looking at all these different things and looking at what I can do to kind of expand things and try different stuff. You know, I've always been disappointed, like I said, with the Dark Angel flyers, and now I've got the option that, oh, maybe I could just throw them in there as a Space Marine force and run a Storm Raven. Those things are super cool. They were super effective against me, and they look really awesome. I think it'd be fun to throw it in there. Just have like a Space Marine transport working on the, working in the same force. And and I think it would just be fun to be able to run those as I see fit, as I want to. So if I want that model, I can go out and get that model and make it work with a list. You know what I mean? And I think that's the best thing that I've seen coming out of this so far, is that ability to just kind of do what I want within reason and be able to put together a list out of the stuff that I find cool. You know? And I know there's going to be people in the ways that you can use that to kind of exploit strengths and weaknesses. And, you know, that's inevitably always going to happen. But now I feel like the biggest benefit for these isn't going to be the power gaming, honestly. I think the power gaming is probably going to come from finding those synergies within one smaller faction, because you're going to get a lot more benefits with command points, with rerolls, and the buffs that a lot of the independent characters are going to be giving, since they're going to be coming out in what is it called? In like a halo, like a bubble out of them onto units. So I think that's where the stronger metas are going to come from, is finding those kind of the way those work together. So finding those, I've heard that there's going to be some HQs that allow you to re-roll one. So maybe you roll them with a bunch of plasma guys that are overcharging their weapons, because that's one of the changes that I've heard that sounds really cool, is that plasma in and of itself doesn't get hot, which is exciting because I have a lot of plasma and I have a strange propensity to roll ones. But what you can do is you can overcharge it. So instead of being strength 7 with 1 damage, it's going to be strength 8 with D3 damage or 3 damage or something like that. And then you take the risk of just basically if you roll a 1, the model dies. It's just straight up dead, which is super brutal. But if it comes down to it and you need to get off those wounds onto a big heavy nasty that's coming at you, you can, and you can take that risk. And I think high risk, high reward will be fun. But yeah, I think that kind of I think that you're going to find those things where you can now overcharge, and if you can reroll 1s within this bubble, suddenly that plasma isn't as dangerous. You look at the way I've run, or the way I used to run the Black Knights, where if it would only count as on a double 1, is what I had thought when I first read it, but they changed that with the FAQ. So I think with the new way, it'll be interesting, because we can, you can now take that risk of testing to see if you're going to get that gets hot. Oh man, what is going on here? And you can still re-roll those 1s, give yourself a better chance of not dying. And I think those synergies are what are going to lead to the stronger metas, the bigger game-breaking lists that are going to do well in tournaments. You're not going to get it from a mix of a whole bunch of random units put together, because I think in most cases every army can do most anything to greater or lesser extents, and I think that allowing them to kind of mix in within relative guidelines isn't going to change that, isn't going to make it any different, to be honest, in my opinion. So I think that really the benefit of all that is going to be in just making fun, cool lists, and that's what I'm excited about. I think that's going to be really cool, that you can have, maybe a oh man, what happened here? What's going on? How does this go together? Sorry, I'm trying to figure this one out just quick. Nope, that's the complete opposites of those ones, isn't it? Alright. Figuring this out. But yeah, just generally I think that you're going to see, like I said, a lot more diverse lists, and those diverse lists are going to be a lot of fun, because you can forge a narrative of telling how they came together, forge a story as to what they're doing. And I think that those kind of changes are going to open things up a lot more, and you're going to see a lot more varied lists, simply because people no longer have to invest into a whole army to take these cool units, these cool tanks that they've wanted to play, they can now just take them and put them as part of the rest of their army pretty simply, based upon some pretty wide rules that I think will be interesting to see how those play out. It also has me wanting to model to hobby more. It's making me want to build up some more units. Makes me want to build up some more weapon options. It's making me want to paint them up to come together so that I've got more of a varied list of actual options once it actually comes to playing the game. Because once 8th edition drops, I don't know necessarily off the bat what options I'm going to have when it comes to this. I'm just going to be, I'm kind of like in the air as to what I'm going to want to do. I've seen that Predators are going to be really cool, it seems, so I'm excited about getting them on the table. It looks like I've got some ideas in my head about getting some close combat units in with some rhinos or some other vehicles, and using the vehicles to soak up Overwatch. A lot of these different things that I think are going to be fun and interesting to utilize are going to make it. They're just making me want to have more at my disposal, so that I can put together these lists and experiment with these lists, and experiment with the gameplay, and experiment with the new mechanics and the way the weapons work, and just try to find what works for me again. And that's making me want to build more. It makes me want to get together some. That's why I'm putting together these guys, because I don't have any metamorphs. You know, I've been able to put together lists, cobble together lists without the metamorphs so far, but I want to give them a shot in the new edition, and I want to try to put together all the different weapons. So I want to have Rocksaw, I want to have the heavy cutter, I want to have, you know, the drill, so that I can experiment and play with the different options and see what works for me, and see what works in together with all of the different things that you have. So that's what it's got me doing. It's got me amped. It's really energized me. It's got me wanting to explore possible new, not new factions, I think just new units from factions. You know what I mean? Like I said, some Tempestus Scions would be cool. Maybe a Baneblade. That's a bigger investment. I don't know if that's going to be coming anytime soon. But it would be cool to run one of those, because you can run them with, and it looks like the Genestealer Cult are also going to work well with the Astra Militarum, so I could use them for both working with my Space Marines or working with my Genestealer Cult. So getting a little bit of more Astra Militarum stuff would be fun. I've got a couple of those still in here that I got to work with. I've got some of the Walkers that I've got. What are they called? The Sentinels. So I think those would be fun. And I've got a Lehman Russ in there too that I want to build up. And just excited about the ability to just expand what I do and what I have at my disposal. Because I feel like a lot of my lists at this point in 7th edition tend to look similar. You know, my tournament list looks almost exactly similar, like minor tweaks at this point. So having just played in the Alaska State Championships, that was the last of the 7th edition tournaments that I'm gonna be part of, which was you know, a little bittersweet. It's been a fun ride, but I think I'm ready to move on to 8th edition. So I came in 5th, which was fun. I lost one game. So not bad. That's actually really good for me compared to how I usually perform in 2-day tournaments. Usually I do really well the first day and then lose every game the second day. This time I lost one the first day and then won all my games the second day. So I consider that improvement. Going into 8th edition, I think it's I'm on the rise. So we'll see what happens with that. And we'll see what happens with the new. We'll see what happens with the new. Whatchamacallits, with the new. With the new system and the way it all works, coming together with new lists, I think is going to be exciting, and it has me excited about making new lists again for the first time. Like I was saying, I felt like I got a little stale. I felt like I knew what worked and I knew what didn't work with my armies, and there was a distinct difference on what worked and what didn't work. There wasn't a whole lot of leeway in trying to get a lot of that in there, unless I felt like I just wanted to throw them on the table for funsies. You know, and now I feel like with 8th edition, I can throw them on the table for funsies, but they're also going to be effective, because I think they're going to be costed out appropriately, so that you know, that's what I've been seeing. There's a lot of granular nature, the micro transactions of purchasing war gear for units now, which I think is going to be interesting. I think it's really going to add a little flair. It's going to add a lot of flair to it's going to add a lot of flair, I think, to how things are going to work out the way they do. I think it's going to be fun to be able to play things out that way. I think it's going to be fun to just kind of see how it all comes together, and I think it's going to be interesting to see how it all comes together. We have a lot of different. We've got a lot of different. Whatchamacallits. We've got a lot of different units that are a lot of different bits and information that are coming out, and so far, you know, some people have been upset because I guess the unit that they used a lot got a little bit of a nerf bat, but I think that it looks like the ones that got nerfed a bit got a points reduction, which is the way it should work. You know, if you lose your effectiveness a little bit, you don't have to pay as much. Like with the grav cannons, they came out. They are now, I think, what did it come out? It was like heavy 4, strength 5, rend -3, and if they're shooting into a unit or a model, whatever, that has a 3+ save or better, then it does D3 wounds instead of just 1 wound, which is interesting because that means they're not going to be as lethal against the big monsters, because you could just shoot grav cannons into Wraith Knights or into Riptides and just shred them unmercifully, and they would be just completely destroyed. I don't think that's going to be quite as effective anymore, but now if I run a whole bunch of heavy, like if my list has a lot of grav cannons, and if those grav cannons now hit the scene, if they hit the scene before, and I ran into someone in a tournament that had a bunch of demons with 0 save and a 5-up invul, my grav cannons were not effective. I'd be hitting on whatever, but then I'd be wounding on 6s, or wounding on 5s or 6s, re-rolling because of grav amps, and then they would still get their 5-up invul regardless, and they would have gotten the same invul if I was shooting them with bolters. And my grav cannons were now 35 point, ineffective pieces of equipment. I think now with the new rules, they're going to be far more effective against hordes, like orcs, like against demons, things like that. Things that before that didn't have a lot of armor, and thus didn't really help you on the wounds, and they didn't really care as much about the AP because they were going to lose that to bolters, let alone your really expensive grav cannons. So I think it's going to be interesting to see. I feel like they've it's balanced out a bit more now, so that those units are going to be those kind of weapons are going to be a little bit more universally available and universally usable, and it will require a little bit more thinking of how you're going to use them and how you're going to deploy them. It sounds like Multi-Melt has got a boon, which is pretty cool because I always thought they looked super cool, and I've got some really cool looking painted ones. But I think that the fact that things are changing around a bit, and I think it's going to be interesting to see how lists evolve and change based upon that. I might need to build some heavy bolters. Who knows? I haven't even seen any information about that. So yeah, that's kind of the way that it really seems to be going to me, is just this excitement, this energy, and the fact that I no longer know what it is that I'm going to be doing with lists actually excites me. It makes me very happy to be able to go into a situation where it's new again, it's fresh again. It's bringing it back to when I first started the hobby, and you look at these codexes, and you're like, oh, these are so cool, this is awesome, and you just start envisioning the models going out onto the battlefield and doing what they're doing without any real understanding of how they interacted on the actual battlefield. So now you're left with a situation where you can look at these things and go, all right, well, now it's new and fresh again, and I can just hit it again, completely new and exciting, and really go out there and try new things, and try new combinations, try new lists, try new tactics, try new everything. Try new everything is what it is. And because of that, it's really energized me to build, it's energized me to paint, it's energized me to to keep looking every morning when I wake up. Being over here in Alaska, all the news already is out, so I get to wake up in the morning, check online, and see what the new tidbit that's come out from Warhammer community, and just kind of get an idea of how things are developing. And so far, I've been very excited about how things are going. I think it's going to take a bit to get real used to it, you know, because at this point I can play 7th with my eyes closed. I know all the rules, I know how things work, I know what happens, and that's changed. That's going to have, you know, take some time to get used to. But at the same time, I think that it's going to be interesting to see. It's really going to be interesting to just see how it all comes together, to get a better idea of how things are going to change, how things are going to work together, and that's exciting. You know, I know there's a lot of people that are not happy about the fact that they don't know anymore. The fact that they had their set ideas, that they had their set knowledge, and then they knew what was going on, and that this is all changing. And I can understand that it's a little scary, but if you look at it as a new opportunity to experience it again, then it's exciting. It's not scary anymore. It's exciting because, you know, we're all at the same base level again. You know, I know that people who've played a lot of Age of Sigmar might have a little bit of an up on some of the bare mechanics, but I think those bare mechanics are going to come very quickly for anyone who's played war games. It's more going to come down to the specifics of how units and weapons and different tactics interact with each other. And once that all comes together, that's where everyone's at the same square, at square one, base zero. We've just got nothing going on, no knowledge, no deeper knowledge there about it. So we're left with a situation where everyone's on an equal footing and we're all trying to figure out what's going to happen. And I think that's exciting to think that, you know, just because the guy across from you has been playing since 5th edition and things haven't changed a whole lot since then, that he's probably got a better idea of what's happening on the table than if you just started. But now you're going to come when those first games of 8th edition start, everyone's going to be looking at each other across the table and go, I know you don't have a whole lot of experience with this because this is new, you know? And I think that you saw the same thing happen with Fantasy and AOS, Age of Sigmar, when it came out, that it was a completely new system, completely new mechanics, and people came together to enjoy the hobby together because they were playing from a completely new standpoint. They didn't have any real base understanding of how the game operated, how the game interacted, and they did it for fun, you know. And I think that GW really learned from how that launched, because it frustrated a lot of people that they couldn't work out a balance system, because that, I think, is pretty important to wargaming, is that you have this sense of balance. That I know it's not chess where you know, if I know my pawn is the exact same as your pawn, but if I know that your 5-point guardsman is approximately a third the price of my, you know, 15-point Space Marine, I have an understanding of when they go toe-to-toe what to expect. Or if my Space Marine goes toe-to-toe with 5 of your guardsmen, I have an understanding of what I can expect of how this is going to go because of the point system and how that balances out. And I think that's necessary, and I think they understood that, and they saw the frustration that players had with Age of Sigmar when it first dropped without those kind of rules, that they didn't want to do that with 40k, with the new 8th edition system. So I think they've done a great job of that, of learning from their mistakes with AOS and making a system in 40k 8th edition that takes the best of what they had and improves upon it, you know? They also made sure that they had playtesters that weren't just them playing it in the studio, because, you know, they play games far differently than I think a lot of tournament players play. So they reached out and they got tournament players to play test it. You know, they got the guys from ITC to play test it, the guys from Nova, the guys from Adepticon to play test it, to give their ideas of how things work, and to try to reach a balance and a system for play that I think works for everyone. So yeah, I think that's very exciting, and I'm really excited to see kind of how this all plays out. I'm excited to see how it all works out, and I think that 8th edition holds a lot for us to kind of experience, and I think it's going to be a lot of fun going into it. And like I said, it's really energized me. It's making me want to build things. It's making me want to paint things. I'm on a semi-purchase hiatus. When the new system drops, I'm going to be buying the main box set, getting me some Primaris Marines. But other than that, I'm kind of on a hiatus for buying new models until I can build and paint out all the stuff I have. That's my plan. That's my goal this summer, is to build and paint what I have in here, which is a fair amount. So we'll see how that goal goes. I think I can make a pretty big dent, though. But yeah, that's kind of what 8th edition has got me feeling, got me thinking. I think that the changes that are coming are going to be beneficial for all of us. I think they're going to be, it's going to be a lot of fun trying to figure out how things work with each other, how things interact with each other. I think it's going to be fun getting to try out new lists, getting to try out old lists and see how things work, see how different they are. Because I think that would be fun to play a couple older lists that you used to play in 7th edition, or hell, even in 6th edition. Or, you know, because I think it would be fun to I haven't run Belial in forever, because my Interrogator Chaplain in Terminator Armor was always a better option. So I think it's going to be interesting to see him on the table again, run him out there with the Terminators. I'm newly excited about Terminators, like I said. I think the changes that I've seen that are coming to them are going to be beneficial for them. I think it's going to make it a lot more fun to play them. And I think they're going to be competitive again, which is super excited. Could you imagine Terminators in a tournament list again? So I think it's going to be fun. I think there's a lot of stuff going on. I think there's a lot of changes that are happening that I think are going to make it interesting to see how they work out. So yeah, I think at this point it's just kind of it's going to be a fun, exciting time, and I think that energy has really translated into my desire to really delve back into this hobby even more so than I have been. I've been pretty hardcore into the hobby for a while now. But it's really energizing me and making me want to do more and play more. And I think it's going to be a lot of fun to see how it all actually finally culminates and comes together. We've only got a couple more weeks to go, so I'm excited about that. And once it drops, we'll be seeing a whole lot more. And I'm excited to kind of get into the process of putting out content for 8th edition. So I've got a whole lot of plans for that, such as you know, how to play games of 8th edition, to really just like overall just concepts with 8th edition and battle reports, obviously. So I didn't get a whole lot of building together because I think this is going to take a little bit more of brain work on my end than I first imagined when I was putting it together. But I hope you guys have enjoyed the conversation. I'd love to hear what you guys are feeling about 8th edition. You know, I know a lot of people have just kind of been put into like a holding pattern where they don't really want to do anything with the hobby until they can see what's going to happen, come out with it, which is understandable. You know, I could understand not wanting to invest or build or paint a unit that, you know, may not pan out the way you want it to. But from my perspective, from seeing the way things have been coming together, I think that this is going to, I don't think you're going to be super disappointed with how units work in the new edition, unless you go into it with an expectation that's that everything's going to be the same as 7th edition, because things are going to be different, things are going to change, and I think it'll be, as long as you're open to the fact that things are different and changing, I don't think you're going to be super disappointed. It might take it might take some rethinking, it might take a different way of approaching things, you know, like I don't think that my Skyhammer or lists that are run similar to Skyhammer are going to be as grav heavy as they have been. I think I'm going to have the option now that you can have each model shoot at a different target. Really opens up the variety that you can throw into units. I think it really opens up the variety that you can throw in, that you no longer have to have just, you know, monster hunters. You don't have to have just no longer just have tank hunters. You no longer have to have, you know, horde handlers. You can run with lists that have everything and anything, you know, so that I can run a command squad, a Green Wing command squad, and throw a flamer, a melta, and a grav gun in there, and they can all shoot at the different targets once they drop that makes sense for them to shoot, you know. So maybe have a couple grav cannons in there, grav guns that drop down and shoot at the shoot at their HQ unit that they dropped down behind with the drop pod, and then they can use the flamer guy can shoot and take out the horde of guys that he had hanging around him, and then he can have the melted guy shoot at the tank that he had just gotten out of, and you can just have a whole lot of flexibility with the way units work now, which is going to be fun. And the fact that everything can wound everything, even if it's going to be very difficult for them to wound everything, that sheer fact makes it so much more fun to be able to run units, because there was nothing more frustrating than having a unit that you never got to use because every time it would get into a battle, it wasn't able to do anything. You know what I mean? I've had a number of times when I would run, when I would have a whole bunch of Bolter Marines and they would drop down there and they'd be like, all right, well, all these guys are, all these vehicles now have, armor 11. There's nothing I can do about that. I've got armor, strength 4 on these guns, and the most I can do is 10 on that. So great, they're just going to sit around and wait until the one guy with the las gun, or the las cannon, can pop them open. So no longer have to worry about that. They can now heave some bolts at it and maybe find a seam in the armor that they can exploit. So yeah, so like I said, 8th edition has just got me excited about expanding on the hobby, expanding on my armies, expanding on the work that I've been doing, and excited about learning a new game and a new system. It's got me excited about the prospect of a more varied lists for myself and for my opponents. It's got me excited for a whole lot of different things that I think are going to be a lot of fun to experiment with and a lot of fun to just explore. So yeah, that's just generally what 8th edition has got me feeling. So I hope you guys enjoyed the conversation. Tell me what you guys are excited about. Like I said, let me know if you think that I'm, being overly expectant for what 8th edition is going to bring. Let me know if you think that there are certain things that aren't super exciting that are coming out. But yeah, just generally let me know what you're thinking. We can continue the conversation down below in the comments. So I hope you guys all enjoyed it. I have been Phil the Glacial Geek as always, and until next time, have fun.